So winter has settled in here in Australia and it is stew season. So I'm going to show you this delicious, wonderful, fragrant Vietnamese beef stew called bo co. And it's just so easy to make. So welcome back to the channel. My name is Leigh. I do a lot of from scratch cooking and I just show you how easy it is to create real food with real ingredients. So today we're going to make this delicious, fragrant beef stew. And it takes me back to when we went to Vietnam for my uncle's wedding. And in the morning, they tend to eat a lot of stews and soups in the morning for breakfast. And the owner of the hotel recommended this beef stew. And we tried it and it was absolutely delicious. And I finally found a recipe a couple of years ago and I've been making it since. So I've been using the recipe from Marion's Kitchen. So if you know Marion, she is actually Thai, but she actually does a really good version of this where it's quite simple and it is absolutely delicious. So with her recipe, I will link it down below. So with all the recipes that I use, I always use them very loosely and I usually adapt them to what I have in my pantry. So I'm not buying extra ingredients for anything. So let's see the ingredients and I'll show you how easy it is to make. So for this recipe, we're going to need some chuck steak. Now, in Vietnam, they typically use the bones of the actual beef and use that instead. We're going to go a little bit western and use some chuck beef, but if you've got bones, you could obviously use them as well. We're just going to cube it up and marinate it and fry it off. It's absolutely delicious. We've got some carrots here for the stew. She said only a couple, but I'd like to add some extra carrots there. We've got a few cloves of garlic here. Again, garlic is like vanilla, you measure it with your heart. So I've got like 6 cloves there. We've got some ginger here, which we're going to slice up. I've got an onion here. She uses Asian shallots, which I don't have, so I'm just going to use that today. And then for some herbs, we've got some Chinese fire sauce to marinate our beef along with some fish sauce. And then we've got some lemongrass. So my lemongrass, I actually buy it in bulk and I keep it in my freezer so it's there ready to use. And even these off parts which you usually throw out and everything, I keep in the freezer because that's going to perfume that stock just beautifully. And then we've got some cinnamon, some star anise, which is just absolutely amazing. If you like that aniseedy taste, it's absolutely delicious. We've got some brown sugar to go with the marinade. And then here I have some homemade tomato paste. Obviously you could use store-bought tomato paste. Mine isn't as concentrated, so that's why there is quite a bit there. And then for our liquid, she just uses water and I use coconut water. And that's because it has a little bit of sweetness in it. And that little bit of coconutty goes absolutely amazing with all these herbs and everything there. So I'm just going to show you how easy it is to make and it's just absolutely delicious. So first we're going to cut up our beef. So what I do is I always put a dishcloth down and then I put my chopping board for my meat on top and that just stops it from moving and everything. And yes, I know it's plastic and I really need to get away from that, but it's one of those things I just can't get away from doing on an actual wooden board or anything like that. So with this chuck beef, you can see it is quite fatty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and cut off some of it, not all of it because that's flavour. And I'm just going to cube it up into about 1-inch pieces. And Felix is right under me. Felix is my cat and he's also a garbage disposal. Because if he hears me in the kitchen, he wants something too. So that much fat is absolutely perfect. So that's what I'm going to leave it like that. Nice sharp knife makes this so much easier. So I've got all this beef all cut up now. There is a bit of fat there and I'm fine with that. If I try to cut it all off, then there wouldn't be any beef left, honestly. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some Chinese fire spice. So I use this one here, which seems to do fine. And we're just going to add a bit there. We're also going to add some brown sugar, and that's just going to help with browning the actual meat. And then we're going to add some stinky fish sauce. Now, I know a lot of people aren't a fan of fish sauce, But this adds like a real, even Marion says it adds like a beefiness to the actual beef. It makes it taste even more beefier. And what we're going to do is just give that a really good stir. Let that marinate for about 10 minutes while we cut up the other veggies, and then we're going to fry it off. So I'm just going to give us a good stir, and then I'm going to put that aside. Marion does also put the lemongrass in here as well, but what I find is no matter how much I cut up lemongrass, it's never fine enough, and you get that kind of graininess of the bits of lemongrass and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put this in the stew separately, and I think it's still going to be absolutely amazing. So first I'm just going to take the skin off my ginger, and I keep my ginger in the freezer because it's about $25 a kilo, so I don't want it to go off or anything. And all I do is I usually just grate it. Now I am going to actually slice this up, but the skin is a bit soft and everything from it being frozen, so I'm just going to peel it off, and it's really easy. Just use a spoon and just kind of like scrape it off. Doesn't need to be perfect. So with my ginger, I'm just going to do that into some nice slices, and that is just going to perfume that broth just beautifully. Next we have our onion. So I'm just using a regular onion here, and I'm just going to slice it into quarters and just slice that. And then for the garlic, I'm going to give it a rough chop. So she said 3 cloves, and you can see there's probably about 6 cloves there. They are tiny though. And we're just going to give them a rough chop, nothing too particular. So next for the lemongrass. So usually I would slice this, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this in whole into the actual soup. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the back of my knife, or I can use like a meat cleaver or something, or a mallet, and just give it a really good bash. Just that way, when it's in the actual broth, it'll actually extract as much as possible. And I'm going to slice that in half as well. Carrots, I'm just going to cut these on a bit of an angle. That's how I usually cut my carrots. Alright, so now our beef is marinated, our veggies are chopped. Now we can start frying off our beef. So I've got a large frying pan here. I'm going to get that heating up nice and high, and we're going to start cooking off that beef. Alright, so now we've got our frying pan nice and hot. We're going to get some oil in here, so I'm just going to use some olive oil. I use olive oil for almost everything. And then we're going to get a single layer of this beef in here. Making sure we don't overcrowd it, and we're just going to fry that off. And you can see how much caramelization that little bit of sugar adds to that, and I think this is essential, and I think it just really improves the actual flavour of the actual stew. Alright, so that looks brown beautifully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to empty that into my slow cooker, and I'm going to get the other ones cooked off. So I've just turned this down to about a medium heat now, and let that cool down a little bit. I've got my tomato paste here. This is homemade tomato paste, so for the recipe I only need about 3 tablespoons, but mine isn't as concentrated, so I'm just going to use a little bit extra. And what we're going to do is we're just going to cook this off in our frying pan a little bit first. And kind of just toast it off. And that just gets that kind of raw taste from the tomato paste out of it. And then to this, I'm going to add a litre of coconut water. Now this is not in her recipe, but I've seen a lot of other recipes, and I know it does add a little bit of sweetness, and also that coconutty taste actually goes really good with the actual spices and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in here and actually heat this coconut water up in the frying pan first, and then I'm going to transfer it to the slow cooker. That way it's not going to take forever to actually heat up. So I am cooking mine in a slow cooker today, And if you don't have a slow cooker, you can obviously just cook this on the stove. It's going to be a lot shorter cook time, or you can actually cook this in the oven. So I think with Marion's recipe, she puts it into a heavy pot and cooks it in the oven for about 2 hours at 150 degrees. You can also just do a low steam on the stove, and I'm sure it will turn out just as good. I like the hands-off approach of a slow cooker, so that's what I'm using today. So to this, I'm going to add our brewed lemongrass and slices of ginger. I'm going to add our garlic. Our onions. And optionally, you could throw them off as well, which I don't really mind. We're going to add our carrots. Then I add 2 quills of cinnamon. She just adds 1. And then I'm going to add some star anise. This adds the wonderful aniseedy taste to it, and it's absolutely beautiful. And then I'm going to carefully transfer this coconut water and tomato paste mixture to our slow cooker. And you might as well just need to just add just a little bit more water just to cover those veggies. Now you've noticed I haven't added any seasoning or any salt or anything like that. And we're going to actually season this with fish sauce a little bit later. So we're just going to let this cook. I'm going to put this on to high, and we're going to cook this for about 8 hours on high. If you want to do it all day, you could probably put it on in the morning and cook it for maybe 10 to 12 hours. It's really going to depend on your slow cooker. So I'll see you back when this is ready. So while that was cooking, I decided to make some condiments to actually go with it. So I like doing some pickled red onion with it. So it's really easy to do. So all I did was I cut up a whole red onion. I just cut it into quarters and just sliced it into nice little slices. And then I got a mason jar. I filled it with a 1-to-1 ratio of vinegar to water. So I did like half a cup of each. And then I did a little tiny bit of sugar and a little bit of salt. Let that dissolve a little bit and just add the red onion to that. And that's it. It's really easy to do, and that should be ready by dinner time. I also went out to the garden and went through my herbs. I have some wonderful herbs growing right now, and I picked some Thai basil and some delicious Vietnamese mint, which is going to be absolutely amazing in this. And it just smells so good. I can't wait to try it. All right, this is done now. It went for 8 hours, and this beef is beautifully cooked. I'll show you it. See how beautifully it just falls apart. So what I've done already is I've fished out all of the aromats. I'll let the ginger in there because I actually like the ginger in my soup, but I've taken everything else out. So that's out of that. So now we're going to actually season this. So the way we're going to season it is with fish sauce. And that's the main way to actually season it. So what we're going to do is we're going to add about a tablespoon's worth. And then we're going to give it a good stir. And then we're going to taste it. And then if it needs more salt, add a little bit more fish sauce. It also adds a little bit of a funk to it, but I don't think you should worry too much about not liking fish sauce because you barely notice it in this. So I've already put some fish sauce in it. So I'm going to give it a stir and let's try it. That star anise really comes through. It's really delicious. I'm going to add just a little bit more fish sauce. You want just a little bit like a salty in the background, but not too much. And just give it another go. I'm going to use the same spoon, but it's just for me. And that is there. So we're ready to serve, and I'm going to show you how to actually serve it. So we're going to firstly start with some of this delicious stew. Now, as you can see, I've left the ginger in there. I actually like the ginger. You can pick that out. And we've got all those carrots that have added a nice sweetness to it. So we have some of that wonderful beef and those delicious carrots and everything. And then I like to put some pickled onions on mine. I think it just adds another dimension to it, so we can add some of that on there. I'm not sure if it's actually traditional, but I remember having that on it. And then I've just got some Vietnamese mint and Thai basil here. And we're going to serve it with a delicious crusty bread roll. Doesn't that look amazing? So because the Vietnamese is influenced by the French quite a bit, it is typical to have a bread roll with your stew rather than having rice or something like that. And you're seeing that all over Vietnam. All right, it's already served. Let's try it out. That is absolutely amazing. You got the aniseed from that star anise. That delicious broth is so good. That beef, it's so tender. And then you got that Thai basil, the Vietnamese mint, and you also got that pickled onion, which just adds a little bit of crunch to it. Absolutely amazing. So I really hope you give this one a go. It's an absolute amazing stew, and I think everyone should try it. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.